Everyone, welcome back to my channel. It's True Crime with Jess Rose. Thank you so much for joining me again. I'm here every Tuesday and Thursday at 8 p.m. Obviously, if you're watching this now, it's been re-put up on my pre-recorded ones because I'm here live every Tuesday and Thursday at 8 p.m. Or if you'd like to see me on TikTok, I'm over there as well, or join my Patreon at patreon.com/JessRose5472. And now all that's done, or you can like, comment, and subscribe. I'd really appreciate that too. Now all of that's done. Tonight's story is a child. Just to give you a quick heads up. Again, I understand if you can't stick around. I get it. I do. I understand. But it's just such an awful story if you are sticking around, just to let you know. Okay. Now there are some small bits of information that are missing, which is really sad. I've searched absolutely everywhere for everything I can get, and what I can find out about this little girl. So I'm going to bring to you what I've got. Okay, so it's the heartbreaking Mercedes Losoya story. Keep saying a lot. It's Losoya story. Okay, so Mercedes Losoya, well, she was born. I've got her date of birth being 2016, 2017. Okay, only based on her age at the point of the story we're going to talk about. Okay, now. Mercedes' mum is Katrina Rose Mendoza, all right? Now, she had little Mercedes when she was about 17. Now, at this point, Katrina had another daughter, Jordan, a year before Mercedes. So there's only a year between the two girls, okay? So I've got her as being about 16 and 17 when she had the two girls. Now, Katrina herself, it said she had a little bit of a rough upbringing herself. Her mum was removed. Well, she was removed from her mum's care. Her mum was sent to jail for beating Katrina's brother. So a case of child abuse within Katrina's family. And she was brought up between family members, the foster system. So she had a little bit of a rough upbringing, Katrina. If you can't hear a sympathetic tone, you'll find out soon why. But I do have to say, so yes, it did say that she didn't have the best start to life, all right? So, like I say, little Mercedes, she had an older sister called Jordan, all right? Now, Mercedes and Jordan was so close. It was said they were so close. They called each other Sissy. And they were just best friends. These two girls were. Now, Mercedes and Jordan's dad, again, I don't know. I've got comments from his family, but not his name. I've even seen a picture of him, but I can't get his name, and I don't know why. So I don't actually know his name. We obviously know his surname's Losoya because Katrina must have named the girls after him because her surname's Mendoza. But that's it on their dad. But other than they broke up not long after Mercedes was born. They just stopped getting along. Very, very young kids having kids, okay? So now it seems like Katrina wasn't close with her family, as we know from her upbringing. Seems that she was very close to the girl's dad's family, even after they broke up. I mean, now we do know that the grandmother of Jordan and Mercedes, now, I've got her name as being Lupe Marin Torres, okay? When I've watched an interview, she's called Lorraine. And I know it's the same woman. So I don't know, is it a nickname? Although I don't know Lorraine would be a nickname. But she says that she made it very, very, very clear to Katrina when the girls were born and when she broke up with what would be her son, that she would always be around, welcome around there. Katrina herself, not just the girls, Katrina herself, you know, she was always part of the family and everything else. And it seems that she did have quite a close relationship with his family, because she would be around there a lot. And what they would notice is that she showed a lot more attention to Jordan, the oldest daughter. Now, remember, there's only a year between the girls. Seems she showed a lot more attention to Jordan than Mercedes. And the family would ask, they'd be like, why? And she'd always just say, she's my firstborn. I don't know if she thought that was an adequate reason to not show the same amount of attention when she'd leave the girls with the family, you know, to babysit or, you know, so they could visit. And she'd come back to collect them. She'd come running in and she'd see Jordan and she'd be like, oh, my baby, I've missed you and I love you. And they said they could see Mercedes just there looking like, well, what about me? Which would have been, oh, just heartbreaking. Like I say, there's only a year between the two girls. You know, they were very, very, very close. And to kind of raise one above the other, their own mum doing that, I just think it must have been, oh, it must have just been so, it sounds really cruel to do that. It really does, okay? Now, what they also started noticing as time went on was that when the girls would come and visit, Mercedes would have bruises on her. You know, and like I say, so it wasn't just sort of a dismissive attitude towards Mercedes. It had become physical, and they noticed bruises. They noticed Mercedes. She'd got a bit quiet, and they reported Katrina to Child Services. They reported their concerns. Nothing was done, though. Child Services would go around, they're like, kid girls are fine, they're absolutely fine. And they'd leave the girls with Katrina. You know, I feel like a broken record saying this all the time. All the time. It drives me crazy. But again, we have Child Services just not doing what they should be doing. It's just so annoying. Okay? Now, Mercedes herself, oh, just such a beautiful little girl. Both girls, absolutely gorgeous girls. But Mercedes herself, sorry, really sweet. It says she's playful, caring, like I said, best friends with Jordan, Sissy. And the grandmother said, you know, she used to be going, Granny, and she'd be like, yeah, and she'd be like, I love you with all my heart. You know, just a cutest little thing. And you could tell the way the grandmother and her great aunt, so it would be her dad's aunt by the looks of it, the way they talk about her, you know, you just see their eyes light up, and she just sounds like an adorable little thing. She really does. Now, Valerie Rios, again, Valerie Rios, that's the name of the aunt that I've got, which would be Mercedes and Jordan's great aunt. But I've also got a name as being Emily. And when I say it's the same person, it's the same person. So I don't know, are they nicknames or their middle names? What I'm going to use, I am going to use Lorraine and Emily as their names. Lorraine being the grandmother and Emily being the great aunt. Okay, so they're the names I'm going to use, because I just I don't know why we've got such different names. I really don't, and all I can assume is they are maybe middle names or stuff that they use. That's all I can think of. Okay, so Emily said that they loved coming over. She spoke a lot about the two girls as well. So the girls in 2021, around November, went to stay with the father side of the family for about a week for Thanksgiving. That's why they were supposed to be there. Now, around this time in November 2021, Katrina begins dating a man called Jose Angel Ruiz. Okay. Now, at this point, around this time, Katrina's around 21, 22. Okay. Jose is about 25. All right. Now, Jose himself also, what I found out, he's come from quite an abusive family as well. His dad was apparently quite abusive with him. You can again hear that I've got no sympathy, and I just can't have any sympathy for these pair. I just can't. But you're going to see why soon, okay? So, now, what it was, at this point, Katrina is working in a, let's just say, a exotic dance facility. I don't know if that makes sense, but I think you know what I mean. Apparently, this is where she met Jose. And she, in conversations with him, would say how much trouble she was having disciplining Mercedes. Doesn't seem she was having trouble with the amount of bruises that were showing up on this little girl. Well, before Jose comes into the picture, let's just say that. Let's, by the looks of it, it's been going on for quite a while. But apparently she tells him, oh God, she doesn't listen to me. She doesn't listen to me. And, I need help. Okay? So, while the girls are at their dad's family's home for Thanksgiving, and they're really excited, the day before Thanksgiving, Katrina and Jose turn up at the family home, and they're like, right, we're taking them home. And the family are like, oh no, don't, just leave them here for Thanksgiving, please don't take them. We're having a lot of family round, and it's gonna be exciting. The girls really want to stay, please don't take them. And she's like, no, we're taking them, they're gonna spend Thanksgiving with us. And of course, the girls are upset and they don't want to go, but they haven't got a choice, and they go with Katrina and Jose. All right. So the unfortunate thing is that was the last time that the family ever got to see Mercedes again. Okay. So we get to the 6th of February 2022. So it's a couple of months later. All right. And Katrina and Jose weren't getting on. So she moves out of his apartment, because I'd missed that. She'd moved in with him very, very quickly. And that's when she'd gone to get the girls to bring them back. Okay. So she moves out of his apartment with the girls, and she moves in with a friend of hers that's in the same building. All right. So now we get to the 7th of February 2022. So the next day. Okay. It's early evening, and Katrina rushes Mercedes to Southwest General Hospital. Now, this case, actually, if I didn't say, is in, bear with me, it's in San Antonio, Texas. All right. So she rushes to Southwest General Hospital. Okay. And when she runs through the door, the triage nurse comes up, takes it off her. She's just basically saying, my baby, help my baby. You know, very dramatic. You know, little Mercedes in her arm, completely unresponsive. So they come over and they rush Mercedes off, okay? And what they notice is that she's got crushed banana in her mouth. So in order to try and begin helping her, they have to scoop the banana out of her mouth, okay? She's still unresponsive. And as they're doing everything they can and putting IVs into her, and they're doing everything they can to try and revive this little girl, they're noticing she's bruised from head to toe, badly bruised. And they're noticing she's got cuts, she's got swelling, head to toe. Then as they're trying to help this child and everything else, and they're noticing she's missing chunks of her hair. This girl had beautiful dark brown hair, quite long, and she's missing chunks of her hair. She's missing teeth. Now you might be like, well, she's at this point, she's 5, 2022, she's about 5. She is 5, sorry. You'd say, oh, okay, well, she might be missing teeth. So they're like looking. These teeth don't look like they fell out though. They look like they've been knocked out, forced out, yanked out. There's toenails missing from her left foot. That's what they also notice. And while the team are noticing this and working on her at the same time, they really, really try. They really do. But at 7:18 p.m. on the 7th of February 2022, little Mercedes Losoya was pronounced dead. It was shortly after her arrival at that hospital. Okay. Now, upon seeing the state this little girl was in, of course, the police are called. You know, it's quite obvious this is an abuse case. It's written all over. Her body's telling everything. Okay. So the police straight away go and speak to Katrina. And what they can hear is her on the phone screaming at Jose. And I don't know if they asked her, I don't know how they knew, but they found him in his car in the hospital car park. And there is a video of that. And yeah, he's just like, oh yeah, she wasn't breathing and we were trying to help her and she kept vomiting and that's why we brought her here. Just very, she was sick and we don't know what's happened to her and that's why we brought her in, apparently. Okay. So the police, of course, are so suspicious. Look at this child, how she's been brought in. Okay. So they're also worried about Jordan. Where's she in all this? But when they tracked down Jordan really, really quickly, Katrina had made sure she was being watched. I'm presuming it's by the friend they were living with. Jordan was fine. Not a mark on her. She was perfectly fine. Well, physically. She was physically okay. Let's just say that. All right? So there's an autopsy done on little Mercedes, okay? And there was extensive injuries consistent with prolonged torture of this child. And there were so many wounds, so many, that it was impossible to say which singular injury caused her death. And while doing the autopsy, as well as the bruises and the swelling and the cuts and the chunks of hair missing and the missing teeth and the missing toenails, She also had a fractured spine. Okay. Now, the cause of death was toxin protein released into the blood from damaged muscle, which is caused from severe abuse. It's called rhabdomitis. I know I'm not pronouncing that correctly. But it basically caused a kidney failure. Her body just couldn't take any more. It gave up. It just couldn't take any more. It all started to shut down. Now, Jose and Katrina were very quickly arrested. Of course they were. Okay. And they were both charged with injury to a child causing serious bodily harm. Don't understand why it wasn't murder, but that's what it was. Okay. Now, Katrina and Jose blamed each other. Why wouldn't they? And she basically said that, yeah, Mercedes just fell unconscious, and I ran to Jose and he started trying to bring her around, and then we rushed her to the hospital. This is what was said, okay? But when all the bruises and all the injuries to Mercedes were shown and were put forward to them, Jose, he basically said, look, Katrina was the chief disciplinarian. Any marks on Mercedes were from her. I don't know what you're talking about. Did I discipline her? Yeah, I might have tapped her now and again. But to be honest, this has got nothing to do with me. That's his point of view. All right? Katrina, well, she blames it all on him. All right? Okay? And what she says is that she needed help disciplining Mercedes, and he was involved in doing that. Okay? So it's very tit for tat. It's very tit for tat at the moment. Okay? So they're both charged. Trial begins in March of 2024 for the pair of them. Okay? Now, the prosecution was Brittany Mitchell. Okay? And the defence was Teresa Connolly. I don't normally put across the names of the defence and the prosecutions. I don't normally do this. But, oh my God, these lawyers. Oh, I was so frustrated watching this trial. I can't put across to you how frustrated I was listening to these women. You had the prosecution on one hand, who were there to lay out what's happened to little Mercedes, okay? It's like she was half soaked. It's like hang on a minute. Hold on a minute. Let me just go back and check my notes. While she's asking the witnesses questions, her own witnesses, and it's like the witnesses hadn't had a what's the words I'm looking for, like a rehearsal. You know, I've never been on the stand, I've never experienced that, but I've always believed that if you're appearing for whether it be the prosecution or the defence of any case, you would have preparation. You know, it's like, I don't understand why that didn't appear to happen. And then from her side, Teresa Connolly, who was the defence, this is the defence for Jose. She just, objection, all the time. Like, this was all it was. Now, I know as lawyers, they have to do that. And then it's up to the judge whether she decides to sustain it or allow it. What's the other word? Sustain it over. Damn it. Override it. Whatever it is. It's up to the judge to do that. But these two women were kind of bickering between each other. Oh, it's just so frustrating. This case was overruled. Yes, it is. I just wanted to put that bit across to you, because it's so frustrating. If you do want to watch the trial, it is online, but Let me know if you feel as frustrated as I did. Okay, now, on the stand, we had Jordan, little Mercedes' sister. Okay. Oh, such a brave little girl. So brave. And of course, you don't see her on the stand, but you can hear her. And I think she'd have been maybe 7, might have still been 6. She was so good. I'd have been so proud of her. She was answering just normal questions at first. You know how they like to get children to prove they know right from wrong, they know a lie from the truth, those sort of questions. And then she just started talking about what happened, what she saw in the house. And she'd say that, you know, Jose would slap Mercedes, and he would lock her in a cupboard, and he would put things in her mouth, and he'd shout at her, and he'd hit her. And I just thought, this poor little girl has been witness to all of this. I just, such a strong little girl, but she's going to need help. There's no two ways about that. And then what she also says is, on the day that little Mercedes went to the hospital, it was Katrina. Because don't forget, they'd moved out the day before. They'd moved out of Jose's apartment. And she said it was Katrina that had forced the banana. Remember, I says when she got into the hospital, she had smushed banana in her mouth. She'd been trying to force banana into Mercedes' mouth. And Jordan's actual words were she was jamming it into Sissy's mouth. Okay. And she says that as she did it and as she shoved it into her mouth, Mercedes fell off the chair that she'd been sat on. And it was then that obviously Katrina must have panicked because she didn't come back round from that fall, and she ran to Jose, and that's how that was the process that had happened in. Okay, the order, sorry. So that was Jordan up on the stand. She did so well. Now, with regards to Katrina, it might sound like I'm swapping and changing a bit here. There is a reason for that, okay? We got to the 29th of April 2024. Katrina took a plea deal. Well, what wouldn't she? She took a plea deal, okay? And it was she pled guilty to injury to a child causing serious bodily harm, all right? Now, the reason she took that plea deal was obviously she didn't want to spend the rest of her life in prison over it. Why would she? But the terms of it is she would have to testify in Jose's trial, okay? Oh, and she did. Oh, she absolutely did. And she put it all at his door, okay? So this is what Katrina said was happening to Mercedes, right? She said he would beat her with a belt, but the buckle end, of course, why wouldn't I? He would force his dogs, he had 2 dogs, he would smear dog feces round her face and then force her to eat it. He'd put a urine-soaked sock into her mouth. And then when he pulled it out, that's when he pulled her teeth out with it. Remember I says they could tell these weren't just teeth that had come out of a 5-year-old child when they're losing their teeth. These were yanked out. Okay. She said he would. Now, what had happened is obviously Mercedes was well potty trained, well toilet trained long ago. but she'd started over those couple of months, she'd started wetting herself. And what he'd do, he would mop the floor with her. So he'd basically drag Mercedes through her own urine to mop the floor. He would suffocate her by putting his hands over her nose and mouth. He would, one of his favourite things, he would put a pole under her arms, okay, and have her in sort of the crucifix pose. And it was said that this, the amount of time she was forced to stand like this, which Katrina said would be hours, was what contributed to fracturing her spine. Okay. Oh my God. Just, he would put tacks, drawing pins, we would know them as, but thumbtacks, they were calling them, in the closet on the floor. And they had a camera in the closet watching her, and she would be trying not to stand on them, but she would be standing on these safety pins, not safety pins, drawing pins, sorry, thumbtacks. She was just tortured. She was just absolutely tortured. This poor girl was just absolutely tortured. And what I did hear, you know, reading about this stuff and hearing it from somebody else, it of course is devastating. It's heartbreaking to think of this happening, but there is a recording of, I believe they're in the car, and Mercedes is in the back, and he's given her a bucket to hold up. Now, I don't know what's in the bucket. I don't know if it's water. I don't know what it is. But you can hear this girl crying her little heart out, saying it's too heavy. And he's just like, it's not too heavy. Pick it up. It's not too heavy. You can hear this, and it's probably about a 20-second clip. But it just broke your heart listening to. It genuinely did. But that wasn't the only video. You see, Jose, he got a kick out of these things he was doing. Got a real kick out of them. And there was videos and photos all throughout his phone of all the abuse he'd done to this little girl. All the abuse he'd done to this little girl. You know, I never get it, whether it's cameras or they have to do it on the phone, but they have to document it, don't they? It's like they have to, I don't understand, but they have to. I don't know whether it's so they can look back at it. I don't get the obsession with having to record these vile things that you do to these children. But it always catches them out. Always, always. So in the trial, they did show some of the videos and the photos to the jury. But when that recording was played out, the family did get up and walk out. They couldn't listen to it. And the prosecution, once they'd showed a few of the pictures and the videos, they didn't really feel the need to show anymore, because it was bad enough what the jury was going through at the time, having to witness this. But they wanted, Mercedes went through it, so they wanted to put that across without showing everything. So they did say that they didn't show absolutely everything in the trial, because he'd recorded everything. Very proud of his handiwork. Very, very proud of it. There was also a video of Mercedes in the shower with clothes stuffed in her mouth. I mean, and you might be like, well, what was Katrina doing at this point? Oh, she was watching. She was there the whole time. she was hoping, you know, he'd show her how to discipline her child. Now you might be able to see why I had no sympathy for either of these cretins for what they went through as children. That doesn't, he never would excuse you doing this to a little girl, ever. Now, neighbours also testified. So that was Katrina's testimony. Obviously, Jordan had spoken. There was also neighbours that came forward, because you might think, well, it's a lot. It's an apartment building. Did anyone hear? Yes, they did. There was a neighbour next to them, and there was a neighbour below as well. And they both took the stand, and they'd called the police. They'd called child services, just like Mercedes and Jordan's dad's family had. Nothing was done. The police came round once. They didn't even go in the house or the apartment. They didn't even have a look at her. No one did anything. I mean, I've seen some real drop the ball stories, and I have done a good few of them. This is one of them. This is like, I just don't know what they were thinking. I don't know. And the prosecution does make a point of that, but she says, look, the police aren't on trial. They didn't kill Mercedes. Child Services didn't kill Mercedes. They're not on trial. It's Jose Ruiz who's on trial. She does say that, and yes, she's right. But it's like, but aren't you paid to step in when you've got these cretins out there? The whole point of a social services and a child services is to step in when these absolute monsters are, you know, are allowed to keep their children. I was going to say have children, just like, just don't know what. Just an absolute disgrace. Awful. Awful. Now, Katrina, now it said on the 29th of April 2024, because she took that plea deal, she was sentenced to 45 years. That was the maximum the judge could give, given the fact she took the plea deal. And the prosecution had offered her that deal in order to be able to basically get Jose. I think that's why they went that route. And with her testimony, that it was, I suppose they call it a slam dunk. But on the 18th of March 2024, the trial was about 4 days long, and it literally only took them an hour to come to a verdict, and it was guilty on all charges for Jose. Now, he showed no remorse. I will say that. The courtroom it wasn't one I've really seen before. It just looked like a room. And 2 desks. He was kind of sat here, just stretched out, watching the videos, looking up at the pictures, looking around. Showed no remorse whatsoever. There was even a video played, you could hear it, of when the detective was interviewing him, and he says, well, Jordan was good, but Mercedes was bad. He says, and he was like, did you hear? And he said, well, I used to pinch her. I didn't even hear pinch in the list. He came up with that. But he didn't admit to anything else. He put it all at Katrina's door. Now, his sentence was life, no parole. Okay. I'm really, really torn, and why they struck the deal with her. I just don't understand why they couldn't have got her too. There was proof from the family that little Mercedes was being abused before he'd even come into the picture. Whether they were like, right, okay, we have got proof she did it before she met him, so she did all of this, and the case would have fell through. I'm assuming that's why they went this route. I'm assuming. And this way they managed to get the two of them. But I just think she should have got life without parole too. But 45 years, she's what, 22, 23 now. She's going to be in her 60s. At least she can't have any more children. There's one blessing. Now, do you remember I'd mentioned Lorraine, the grandmother? Now, she did read an impact statement from Jordan, okay? And that was the only time throughout the whole trial that Katrina cried. She didn't cry looking at the pictures of Mercedes, talking about Mercedes, discussing the abuse that child went through. She didn't cry once. Not even, she was kind of shaking her leg on the stand. You could see her doing this. But there was no emotion. Her only emotion was when the grandmother was reading the statement from Jordan. Remember, the eldest child, she's my firstborn. You know, it's just like she just had no love for Mercedes. And the impact statement was basically the grandmother saying that Jordan says she's scared. She's scared of her mum coming home and taking her back to Jose's and doing to her what had been done to Sissy, which is obviously Mercedes. She says, I love mummy, but I'm scared. Just very, very sad. Just basically scared that Katrina's going to come back and get her. She's also, in the statement, it said that, you know, she's got kids coming up to her in school saying, did your mum kill your sister? I mean, how heartbreaking for a little girl to hear about. And I do think what's also terrible is those kids, and I'm presuming it's elementary school, wouldn't have heard about that. So it's the parents discussing it in front of the kids, and they're coming in and saying it to her. I just think, God, watch what your kids are listening to. Don't have those sort of discussions around young kids, especially kids that go to school with the sister of the victim. Are just, oh God, just ridiculous. Now Lorraine does say, I'll never forgive them. Emily says, you know what, they get to live though. Mercedes doesn't. They get to live. But Lorraine does say she'll always be in our hearts. You know, they're just devastated. I think they're devastated over the fact that no one listened to them, no one helped them. They'd been letting them know about the mistreatment of Mercedes long before Jose came into the picture. He just ramped things up to just a awful, devastating degree. And it just, a just awful story. I don't know what I'm trying. I've got so many words to describe these people running through my brain that I'm tripping over my own words because they're just a disgrace. I just genuinely don't know what to say about these people. I really don't. And I think the fact that even with the videos and the pictures and little Mercedes' voice crying out at the trial when the video is being played, didn't move them, didn't move him, didn't move her mum. I just think you're just vile. You're just a vile human being. And yeah, I've got nothing more to say about her. I just really haven't. Just disgusting pair of... I know it might seem that my disgust is more at Katrina, and I suppose it is, because you brought him into your... Not only did you bring him into your child's life, you asked him to discipline her. You watched what he did to her. And not only that, you were already beating her before he came into play. So yes, if it seems that I'm more judgmental of her, I absolutely am. I am. But yeah, that was the heartbreaking Mercedes Losoya story. Oh God, that poor little girl. Oh, just absolutely awful. I'm just sorry, guys, if it was a bit kind of fractured the way I told the story. It's just there was information, sort of bits and bobs everywhere, but a lot of things were missing. You know, I couldn't even get the child's date of birth, which I found really, really sad. There's just really not a lot about this little girl out there at all. I just wanted to do her story because I thought her story should be told. It really should. What she went through is just, and if you saw her, just, oh, just an adorable looking little girl. She really was. And her poor sister, you see photos and like little Snapchats together, and they literally look like twins only. You can see Jordan slightly taller, only slightly though. Just awful. Absolutely awful. But thank you so much for joining me. I really do appreciate it. Like I say, I'm here live every Tuesday and Thursday at 8 p.m. Or you can wait for this to be uploaded on the pre-recorded ones, or I am over on TikTok. Or if you'd like to like, comment and subscribe, I'd really appreciate that too. And yeah, thank you again, and I'll see you next week. Thank you so much. Take care. Thank you.